You know, in Attack on Titan, there's Reiner Braun. The guy survives getting absolutely shredded by Levi, takes a bullet to the head, gets chomped on by Titans. It's almost unbelievable.
Yeah.
Fans online even joke about his plot armor.
Right, you hear that a lot. But what's fascinating, though, and what the material we've looked at really digs into is this idea
Yeah.
that his survival isn't just, a writer's trick. It seems deeply connected to his psychological state.
Oh, okay.
And maybe the core messages of the whole story.
Exactly. So that's what we're doing today, a deep dive into why Reiner keeps surviving these, well, insane situations.
Yeah.
Think about it. That brutal encounter with Levi,
Oh, yeah.
Pieck's surprise headshot,
Mm-hmm.
even the Warhammer Titan coming right after him. It really feels like the narrative itself refuses to let him die.
And it's not just the external threats, is it?
No.
The sources we have highlight his attempted suicide in Season 4.
Right, I remember that.
Even when he actively wants death, it seems to elude him.
So his inability to die isn't just about being physically tough.
Not entirely, no.
I mean, of course, the Armor Titan's thick armor definitely plays a role in his physical resilience.
Sure, it has to.
It's literally built to withstand incredible damage.
Built tough.
But the material we're exploring really emphasizes the mental aspect. The
Guilt.
Yeah, particularly the immense guilt he carries.
And this ties into a really key moment that the analysis points out, that Season 2 scene.
Which one?
Where Reiner transfers his consciousness, showing off Titan ability.
Right, to survive.
Yeah, but it wasn't just a cool Titan power demo. The idea is it foreshadowed this incredibly strong survival instinct.
Yeah.
But an instinct that seems rooted in, profound self-loathing.
Wow, okay. Self-loathing fuels survival.
Kind of. The text suggests that for Reiner, death would actually be a release, a mercy.
A mercy.
That the story consistently denies him. So maybe a core insight here is that Reiner's improbable survival isn't just lazy writing or plot armor.
It's something else.
It's a powerful exploration of survivor's guilt, maybe?
Yeah.
Showing how the burden of living with trauma can be its own kind of ongoing punishment.
Okay, let's unpack this curse of a broken mind idea a bit more.
Sure.
The sources we've looked at really delve into this internal conflict Reiner is constantly battling.
Yeah, it's intense.
This intense desire to just be done with everything, yet this almost stubborn inability to actually die.
Right.
Think back to that scene in Liberio.
Yeah.
When he outright asks Eren to kill him, just begs him.
That moment is so telling, isn't it? And Eren's refusal?
Yeah. What about it?
It isn't just moving the plot forward. It sort of underscores that death would have been the easy way out for Reiner.
Ah, I see.
So his so-called plot armor actually functions as a narrative tool.
To do what?
To prolong his suffering, maybe?
Right.
To highlight his psychological deterioration.
So the longer he's forced to live,
the more fractured his mind becomes.
Yeah.
From a storytelling perspective, you could argue Isayama uses Reiner's repeated near-death experiences quite deliberately.
How so?
As a technique to really hammer home the theme of guilt. It's not just shock value, it's about showing us, the audience, the psychological toll through his continuous suffering.
And it's brutal to witness, especially when you think about his attempted suicide in Season 4.
Exactly.
The analysis even points out this almost disturbing element where his own body seems to betray his wishes.
Like the armored Titan itself.
Yeah.
Its ingrained will to fight just overrides Reiner's personal death wish.
Wow. It's like he's trapped within himself, forced to keep going.
Yeah. So building on that physical resilience, the source material really pivots to the internal landscape of Reiner's mind.
Suggesting a much darker reason for why he keeps going.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the source makes a pretty compelling parallel to real-world survivor's guilt.
Okay, explain that.
Well, that persistent feeling of maybe deserving to have died, the heavy weight of surviving when others didn't. It can be an incredibly heavy burden.
Right.
Essentially, his inner turmoil and self-hatred become the very things that prevent him from finding peace, even in death.
So the narrative might be using Reiner's experience to explore this very real and complex psychological thing.
Seems plausible. It makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But how often we see this, maybe in real life, individuals carrying immense burdens from the past, feeling trapped by their own actions or what they survived.
Now, the material also draws a really interesting parallel between Reiner and Eren,
Yeah.
almost positioning Reiner as like a dark reflection of the protagonist.
Mm.
Both are weighed down by their monster status, but
Yeah.
their reactions are completely different.
And what's fascinating there is that contrast, right?
How so?
Eren, in his descent, ultimately embraces this destructive power. He even declares his freedom in this really twisted way.
I'm free.
Reiner, on the other hand, is constantly shrinking from the monster he feels he is.
Right.
The analysis highlights this beautifully by juxtaposing Eren's "I'm free" with Reiner's stark "I'm a murderer."
And it really emphasizes the different paths they've taken, doesn't it?
Totally. Eren, despite his initial idealism, ultimately made a choice, however warped it became.
Mm-hmm.
Reiner, as the sources point out, was essentially forced onto his path. He was a child soldier.
Yeah, basically indoctrinated.
That lack of agency, that feeling of being a pawn, it seems to contribute to his inability to find any peace, even in the prospect of death.
So his ongoing suffering really illuminates the vicious cycle of violence that runs through the entire narrative.
It seems to, yeah.
You mentioned the narrative denying him mercy. Could we interpret that differently? Maybe it's not just punishment?
What are you thinking?
Perhaps it's also about the story needing him to fulfill a specific role later on.
That's a valid point to consider. The narrative certainly has its own demands, its own endpoint. However, when we look at Reiner's internal state, how consistently it's portrayed, the denial of death does feel intrinsically linked to his guilt and the thematic exploration of its consequences.
Okay.
And the irony isn't lost, as the analysis points out, in their final confrontation.
Between Reiner and Eren.
Yeah. Reiner, the one who yearned for death for so long, ultimately plays a crucial role in killing Eren.
The one person who perhaps truly understood the weight of his burden.
Exactly. So in a strange twist, he achieves a form of heroism, maybe.
But it's one completely overshadowed by tragedy.
And the immense weight of his past actions, absolutely.
You know, when fans discuss the best-written characters in Attack on Titan, names like Levi or Erwin often come up first.
They do, they're very popular.
But the sources we've examined make a really compelling case for Reiner being absolutely central to the entire tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
It argues that his so-called plot armor isn't a narrative flaw at all.
But integral.
An integral part of the story's thematic core.
Exactly. The analysis posits that Isayama intentionally kept Reiner alive, not despite his near-death experiences, but maybe because of them.
Okay. Why?
His survival serves to illustrate the profound human cost of war that extends far beyond just battlefield deaths.
Focusing on the survivors.
Right. It focuses on the lingering trauma, the guilt that just eats away at survivors long after the fighting stops.
That final scene the analysis mentions, with Reiner just staring up at the sky.
Yeah, powerful image.
It's so powerful. There's no triumphant fanfare, no sense of closure.
Yo.
Just this quiet contemplation, this enduring weight of guilt, and a lifetime of what-ifs etched on his face.
It lingers.
That moment in Liberia when Reiner asks Eren to kill him, that always struck me.
Yeah.
What does the source material really emphasize about the significance of Eren's reaction in that specific scene?
The analysis highlights Eren's almost dismissive refusal as key.
Dismissive.
It underscores Eren's descent, right?
Yeah.
Into a state where he sees Reiner not as a fellow sufferer anymore, but as just another obstacle. Maybe. Another player in his grand, destructive plan.
Wow.
It emphasizes the isolation Reiner feels. Even the one person who might understand his pain is no longer willing to offer him that solace, not even in death.
So to sort of bring it all together,
Yeah.
what's really striking is that Reiner's survival in Attack on Titan isn't some random narrative cheat code.
Doesn't seem like it.
The material we've explored strongly suggests it's a deliberate and crucial element of the storytelling.
Right.
To delve into these really complex themes of trauma, the crushing weight of guilt,
Mm-hmm.
and the long-lasting, devastating consequences of violence, not just on those who die.
But perhaps even more profoundly on those who are forced to live with what they've done.
Yeah,
It definitely offers a different lens through which to view the entire series, doesn't it?
it really does.
This idea that sometimes living with the weight of your actions, with the constant reminders of the past, that can be an even heavier burden than death itself. It really makes you reconsider how we evaluate character development, maybe, and the true, often unseen cost of conflict in storytelling.
It certainly does. It leaves you thinking about the characters who walk away from the battlefield, not unscathed,
Far from it.
but perhaps carrying wounds far deeper than any physical injury.
A powerful reminder that survival isn't always a victory.
Not always a victory at all.